Welcome back, everyone. I want to sincerely thank each and every one of you for your incredible support of the channel. Today, I'm excited to share a manhwa recommendation from one of our subscribers. I've put my heart into fulfilling this request, and I hope you all enjoy this manhwa as much as I did. Now, it's your turn to suggest any request you have for future content. Let me know in the comments. Without further ado, let's dive into the manhwa. The story begins in the kingdom of Yin, within the bustling city of Luyun, where a grand auction is underway at the Pavilion of 10,000 Treasures. Rumors swirl among attendees that martial arts techniques from the sacred land of the Five Elements are on the block. One skeptic questions the truth of these rumors, noting that even a yellow-rank treasure could overpower practitioners from Luyun. Eager to obtain such a technique, a man in red draws attention to a figure on stage, identifying him as Lin Yunka, the youngest son of the wealthy and prestigious Lin family of Luyun. He challenges a man in blue, questioning how he plans to compete with this rich young contender. Confident in his wealth and status, Lin Yunka boldly declares that no one dares to outbid him in this auction. The auctioneer, Nalin, takes the stage and introduces the first treasure, a superior yellow-rank technique known as the mountain-moving technique, originating from the sacred land of the Five Elements. Bidding commences at 300,000 gold coins, with increments of at least 10,000 gold coins. Quickly, bids escalate to 350,000, then 380,000, and finally 400,000. However, Lin Yunka stuns the crowd by bidding 3 million, dismissing other bidders as insignificant. His bid, 10 times higher than the current bid, leaves the audience in awe. Nalin pauses, inviting anyone brave enough to challenge Lin Yunka's exorbitant offer. The scene unfolds in the Pavilion of 10,000 Treasures, where doubts linger among attendees about challenging the Lin family's dominance. Suddenly, a daring figure raises their hand and offers an astonishing 30 million gold coins, challenging anyone to surpass his bid. This audacious bidder is Yifan, the protagonist, stunning the crowd with an offer that exceeds the initial value 100-fold, enough to purchase the entire city of Luyun. Lin Yunka, visibly enraged, demands to know who dares to outbid him. With no further challengers emerging, Nalin declares Yifan's 30 million bid as the winner. An elderly advisor counsels Lin Yunka against letting his emotions rule him, reminding him of their broader objectives. Though irritated, Lin Yunka acknowledges the advice while asserting his independence. As the auction concludes and people begin to disperse, Nalin announces the final treasure of the day, the Celestial Ascension Order. Bidding starts at 2 million gold coins, with increments no less than 100,000. The crowd is mesmerized by the legendary artifact, the Celestial Ascension Order. The elderly advisor informs Lin Yunka that Lady Ziner has coveted this item, suggesting its acquisition could enhance his standing with the Lord of the city. Curious about its significance, Yifan learns that the Celestial Ascension Order grants Immortal the rare opportunity to cultivate in the sacred land, bypassing conventional conditions. Eligibility requires being under 20 years old and meeting specific cultivation criteria for the entrance test. Yifan realizes the order is akin to a priceless opportunity in this world. Lin Yunka, assuming Yifan had exhausted his funds with the 30 million bid, underestimates him as a mere country bumpkin seeking attention. Determined to regain the spotlight, Lin Yunka raises his bid to 5 million. However, Yifan astounds everyone by immediately counterbidding 100 million, confidently questioning the crowd's hearing in a sarcastic tone. Without hesitation, Nalin concludes the auction, emphasizing that payment must be made in full immediately, without credit or installment plans. Yifan requests a private room to arrange the substantial payment, while Lin Yunka instructs his elderly companion to investigate Yifan. In the privacy of the room, Nalin assures Yifan he has time, with her team waiting outside. Alone, Yifan removes a ring and tosses it, transporting himself to another place, his home in the real world. There, he prepares to procure goods, explaining his ability to travel between two worlds. He reminisces about how it all began with a cooking accident, where his blood touched a family heirloom, transporting him to a fantastical realm where the strong soar and the weak watch from below. In this world, a cabbage he held transformed into a valuable crystal-clear vegetable spirit, fetching 10 million gold coins at market, a turning point in his fortunes. After a month of navigating between worlds, Yifan has mapped out its structure. The Eastern River, Southern Desert, Western Sea, Northern Plains, and the Central Region are its 5 main divisions. In addition to these regions, independent areas such as the Ancestral Demon Caves, Immortal Tomb, and Celestial Cave of Spiritual Ruins exist within the fantastical realm. The Southern Desert and Western Sea are territories primarily inhabited by demon races, including the ancestral demon cave. In contrast, the Eastern River, Central Region, and Northern Plains are predominantly occupied by humans. The three races, humans, beastfolk, and demons, have been locked in continuous conflict for centuries, despite maintaining a fragile facade of peaceful coexistence. Among humans, martial artists hold immense respect unlike common folk. They are classified into two main realms based on their cultivation levels and their ability to transform spiritual energy into different forms. The physical cultivation realm spans 7 levels: body tempering realm, bone fortification realm, internal strength realm, blood transfusion realm, marrow cleansing realm, enlightenment realm, and profound heavenly realm. Meanwhile, the spiritual cultivation realm comprises 10 levels: spiritual energy realm, astral spiritual realm, spiritual sea realm, heavenly realm, returned realm, golden core realm, spiritual manifestation realm, divine transcendence realm, and wandering void realm. The workings of the ancestral ring, crucially illuminated through the protagonist's continuous introspection, add another layer of mystery and significance to the narrative. In this universe, only plants or animals weighing under 200 grams can travel between worlds. All other items are unable to make the journey. Conversely, if an object from the alternate world is brought to Earth, it inexplicably transforms into worthless trash. Luckily, the ancestral ring possesses a useful function for changing clothing, which proves invaluable to the protagonist. Returning to Ifan's perspective, after his flamboyant display at the auction, he realizes he has only a few vegetables left at home and urgently needs more supplies. Spotting something outside his window, an idea strikes him. The next day, in the ancestral world, guards inform Nailin that Ifan has been secluded in his room for an entire day without emerging. She instructs them to wait a bit longer. One guard remarks that Ifan is dressed plainly and appears to lack wealth, which raises suspicion about his sudden appearance. Nailin deliberates briefly and decides not to wait any longer, entering Ifan's room. However, as soon as the door opens, she finds herself face to face with Ifan, who promptly reassures her that it's not New Year's yet, so there's no need for such commotion. Nailin steps back, asking Ifan if he has the coins prepared. Blushing, she wonders how he dares to take advantage of her, emphasizing that if he doesn't pay today, there will be consequences. Ifan begins to explain that acquiring gold coins isn't straightforward when the guards suddenly erupt in curses, labeling him a swindler. Without warning, Ifan produces a stunning flower. He declares their interest in the flower, catching Nailin's attention. She identifies it as a dragon tail herb, renowned for its miraculous ability to heal external injuries and extend the lifespan of the uninjured, making it an invaluable spiritual herb. Ifan then asks how much it's worth. Undeterred, he reveals more treasures: a basket containing several dragon tail herbs, each with miraculous healing properties, a blue spirit flower promising eternal beauty, and a 1,000-year rootless branch, an exceedingly rare find, all considered priceless worldly treasures. Nailin exclaims that even a few of these flowers would fetch a considerable sum, but a basketful like Ifan's could easily be valued at 200 million gold coins. She demands to know where Ifan obtained such treasures. He casually explains that he collected what he thought were ordinary dry weeds and leaves while assisting a janitor. Delighted, Nailin invites Ifan to discuss further. She admits to having traveled the world extensively but has never encountered such a remarkable opportunity before. She expresses her eagerness not to let it slip away and asks Ifan if he would consider selling all these herbs to her. Ifan, aware of the worth of each dragon tail herb at 40 million, asserts that if Nailin wants the entire collection, she'll need to compensate him accordingly. After striking a deal with Nailin, Ifan leaves with a backpack filled with treasures from her facilities. As he departs, he playfully shouts back to Nailin that she still owes him. She replies nonchalantly that he can return whenever he likes. Back inside, the guard informs Nailin with astonishment that Ifan has taken all the treasures from the first floor of the hall. Nailin dismisses his concern, calling it a long-term investment and remarking that someone who treats such valuable treasures almost casually must be a unique individual. Meanwhile, in another location, Ifan encounters 2 would-be thieves who attempt to rob him. With a confident smirk, Ifan challenges them, asking if they really think they can take him. When one of the thieves attacks, Ifan shouts a command and disappears, leaving the bewildered thief empty-handed. Back on Earth, Ifan reflects that he was fortunate not to have used his daily travel to the other world yet that day. He acknowledges the harsh reality of the other world, where people often resort to killing for robbery. Clarifying for those unfamiliar, the ancestral ring permits travel to the other world once per day. Reflecting on recent events, Yifan realizes he overlooked many precautions, such as wearing a mask during the attention-grabbing auction. He anticipates facing more challenges in the future and resolves to learn martial arts for self-defense. Previously, Yifan had struggled with the complexities of martial arts techniques from the other world. However, upon revisiting his book, he discovers a newfound simplicity in understanding the techniques. He realizes that if he can bring these martial arts to Earth, they could be easily mastered. Determined to become a supreme martial arts master, Yifan diligently practices the mountain-moving technique over the next half-month, supplementing his training with earth-brought food. His progress is astonishing, as he quickly strengthens his body. Despite appearing to be at the initial stage of the body-tempering realm, his physical power rivals that of martial artists in the internal strength realm. With a punch capable of exerting 2 tons of force and fortified internal organs, Yifan feels he has taken his first significant step into the martial arts world. However, aware that his early exposure at the auction may attract unwanted attention, Yifan resolves to intensify his efforts. Suddenly, he hears cries for help and spots 6 people under attack by wolves from his vantage point up a tree. Facing the tough wolves, Yifan observes as one of them lunges towards a person, only to be swiftly incapacitated by Yifen's punch, sending it sinking into the ground in confusion. Witnessing this, the people and the remaining wolves appear bewildered. Seeing an opportunity to test his newfound martial arts techniques, Yifan welcomes the wolves' aggression. As the wolves attack, Yifan channels his skills and unleashes a devastating hurricane-like strike, sending the wolves flying and swiftly resolving the conflict. Impressed and grateful, the people around him praise Yifan, hailing him as incredible. Elsewhere, the sounds of powerful blows echo through the air as Yifan continues to train. He demonstrates his strength by effortlessly knocking down trees with powerful slaps, including slicing one in half with a diagonal strike. The young girl from earlier arrives, marveling at Yifen's feats and expressing gratitude for the trees he felled, which will provide wood for the Mu family's village. Yifan modestly downplays his actions, recalling the girl's father, Muti, who introduces himself as the village chief's son. Muti sincerely thanks Yifan for saving his daughter and the villagers, acknowledging that the Mu family owes him a debt of gratitude. Despite recognizing Yifen's martial prowess, Muti cautions that the mountain remains perilous, emphasizing the safety of the Mu family village. Moved by Muti's gratitude and invitation, Yifan agrees to accompany them to the Mu family village. After being invited to the Mu family village following his heroic encounter with the wolves, Yifan respectfully accepts, seeing it as an opportunity for secluded cultivation of the mountain-moving technique. Over the past days, Yifan successfully progresses from the body-tempering realm to the peak of the bone fortification realm. However, he now faces a cultivation bottleneck. Recognizing the need to advance to the internal strength realm, which strengthens the internal organs to the point of digesting stone, Yifan recalls that according to the mountain-moving technique, consuming the internal organs of high-level beasts can facilitate this breakthrough. He considers a plan to travel to Earth, purchase meat, and transport it to the other world for this purpose. Muti calls Ruoruo, signaling their readiness to go to the market, and invites Yifan along since he has free time. After a brief moment of contemplation, Yifan agrees. Upon arriving at the market in Luyun, Muti sells wolf pelts and boar tusks, expressing gratitude to Yifan for enabling the successful sale of the wolf pelts. Yifan humbly brushes off the thanks. Ruoruo then invites Yifan to join her in purchasing crystallized pumpkins. After Muti finishes packing up, Yifan suggests they depart together, but Muti insists they go ahead without him and Ruoruo. Ruoruo departs happily while Yifan remains puzzled by Muti's apparent disregard for his daughter's safety. The young girl speaks of Yifan in the third person, praising him, though he understands her intent. Yifan gently encourages her to leave to avoid worrying her father. However, as they proceed, they encounter a commotion ahead, where Ruoruo notices it involves her father. Pushing through the crowd, Yifan sees Muti and others from the Mu village being surrounded and mistreated. Ruoruo bursts into tears at the sight of her father and uncle being kicked and abused. Ignoring Muti's warnings, she rushes forward, demanding to know why they are being attacked. A crazed man attempts to kick Ruoruo, but Yifan intervenes swiftly, gripping the man's leg with such force that it snaps. Confronting the aggressor, Yifan questions how someone in the advanced stage of body tempering could ruthlessly attack a young girl. The man, writhing in pain, demands to know who Yifan is and how he dares to intervene. Defying the man's calls for retaliation, Yifan effortlessly dispatches several attackers with precise strikes. He stands over a fallen man, challenging him defiantly. The defeated man pleads for mercy, admitting he wouldn't dare continue the confrontation. In the background, a bald man silently observes the scene unfold. As Yifan confronts the man he subdued, he demands to know why they were attacking people on the street. Threatening a severe consequence for a wrong answer, Yifan's firm demeanor prompts Ruoruo's uncle to intervene, explaining that these men are from the city lord's mansion and cautioning against provoking them further. Turning his attention to Yin, Yifan seeks clarification on the events. Meanwhile, Ruoruo checks on her uncle's leg, concerned for his well-being. Suddenly, Zhou Heng, the bald man who identifies himself as the head guard of the city lord's mansion, steps forward to address Yifan's inquiry. Zhou Heng accuses Yin of colliding with the young lady's carriage and subsequently arguing with her, which led to the altercation. A voice from the crowd counters, asserting that it was the carriage that lost control and struck Yin first. They claim Yin and his companions were attacked without reason when they sought an explanation. Muti restrains Li, advising him to stay silent and accept responsibility for the incident. Muti kneels on the ground and admits that the mistake was theirs. He asks the young lady to forgive them, since his brother's leg was broken. The protagonist thinks that this girl is the eldest daughter of the city lord. Since ancient times, people have not dared to fight with the nobility. Yifan understands why Muti doesn't want to mess with them. The girl begins to open the curtain and says that since they are wrong, they must pay for their mistakes. This girl's name is Lanzener. She orders the bald man to cut off each of their legs to serve as a warning to others. They are shocked by how cruel this girl is. She says dismissively that they will only lose their legs while she lost her good mood. She tells the bald man to cut. The bald man says that if it's what she wants, then he will do it. Zhou Heng tries to cut one of the guys, but the protagonist holds his sword with his hand. Zhou Heng is shocked. Then Yifan tries to slap the bald man, but he manages to dodge. Zhou Heng retreats a bit. Yifan asks the fallen man if he is okay, and the man says yes. Ruoruo is crying, afraid that Yifan will get hurt. Lan wonders where this boy came from and how he dares to go against her. Suddenly, the protagonist advances, and the bald man tries to defend himself with his sword. But the protagonist strikes the middle of it, breaking it effortlessly. The bald man wonders how this boy broke his sword with a single strike. The confrontation intensifies as Yifan, the protagonist, presses his advantage with another powerful punch. Despite the bald man's claims of invulnerability due to his city lord-awarded armor, Yifan's relentless assault breaks through, disrupting the bald man's defense and sending him flying. Concerned onlookers check on the bald man's condition, remarking that it's a day for those with sharp eyes. A nearby girl warns them to lower their voices to avoid trouble. Suddenly, the bald man rises in fury, unleashing his bloody chi release fortification skill. This alarms Yifan, who now faces the bald man's furious tiger fist technique, enduring several punishing blows. Through the exchange, despite taking hits, Yifan realizes a critical detail: the bald man's observation that Yifan lacks formal martial arts training. Acknowledging that he is only at the beginning stage of the blood transfusion realm, Yifan calmly notes the bald man's superiority in realms but criticizes his actual combat effectiveness as weak. Yifan's punch lands solidly, twisting the bald man's jaw, prompting concern from those around as they check on his condition again. Witnessing Yifan's unexpected strength despite his lack of martial arts training leaves the onlookers astounded. Meanwhile, Ruoruo approaches Yifan to ensure he's alright, and he reassures her, noting that his physical body seems to have naturally enhanced upon entering this world, surpassing the limits of the realm's inhabitants. Amidst the escalating tension, Lan commands the guards to mobilize from the city lord's mansion to arrest everyone in the crowd and imprison them in the dungeon. Her orders are met with immediate compliance and affirmations of loyalty from the guards. Muti warns Yifan about the consequences, as historically no one has emerged from the dungeon unscathed. Suddenly, Miss Nailon arrives on the scene, addressing Lan with pointed criticism. She accuses Lan of abusing her power, trampling civilians, and acting with impunity as if the Yin dynasty has transformed into the Lan family. Lan challenges Nailon's accusations, demanding clarification. Nailon boldly asserts that she witnessed Lan herself mistreating civilians in the streets, highlighting Lan's abuse of authority. Turning her attention to Yifan, Nailon introduces herself, prompting Yifan to request less formality. Ruoruo is impressed by their acquaintance, realizing that Nailon is the proprietor of the 10,000 Treasures Pavilion, the largest merchant institution in Luyun City. Lan, surprised by Nailon's intervention, dismisses her association with what she considers mere riffraff. Nailon firmly asserts that common people are the bedrock of the country, highlighting Lan's repeated disparagement of them despite her status as the eldest lady of Luyun City. She subtly raises the possibility of repercussions if Lan's behavior were to reach the royal city, but denies any overt threat. Lon, understanding the implications of offending the 10,000 Treasures Pavilion, decides to back down to avoid potential trouble and departs, leaving the Mu family safe from further harm. Grateful for Naelin's intervention, Yifan thanks her sincerely. She brushes off his gratitude, insisting it was no trouble. Naelin then directs her attention to tending to the injured, arranging for them to be taken to a guest room for treatment. Curious, Ruoro asks Yifan about his relationship with Naelin, especially given her wealth and beauty. Yifan cryptically responds that she owes him money, much to Ruoro's surprise. Later, Yifan and Naelin sit down for tea. Naelin commends Yifan on advancing to the bone fortification realm, noting that he is exceptionally young to achieve such a feat in the history of Luyun City. Yifan dismisses her praise, remarking that without her timely intervention, extracting the group safely would have been much more challenging. Yifan listens as Naelin describes various martial arts techniques available at the pavilion. She introduces the mountain-piercing finger technique first, a low yellow rank technique capable of allowing a practitioner to pierce mountains and rocks with a finger when mastered. Despite its power, Yifan passes on this option. Naelin continues, mentioning the black sand palm next. It's an intermediate yellow-ranked martial art known for its proficiency in manipulating and launching condensed black sand at opponents. Interested, Yifan considers it, but decides to explore other options as well. Next, Naelin presents the Jade Cloud Swordsmanship, another intermediate yellow technique that focuses on fluid sword movements resembling drifting clouds. She explains its elegance and effectiveness in both offense and defense. Yifan takes note of this technique, but remains undecided. Lastly, Naelin mentions the Heaven's Thunder Palm, a high yellow rank technique. It's renowned for its ability to channel and release thunderous energy through palm strikes, capable of shattering rocks and causing powerful shockwaves. Yifan is intrigued by its potential and decides to inquire further about it. With these options laid out before him, Yifan ponders which martial arts technique will best suit his goals and aspirations in mastering martial arts in this world. Yifan smiles as Ruoro expresses her joy over the dress he bought for her. Naelin joins in, mentioning to Ruoro that Yifan picked it out especially for her, adding to her excitement. Ruoro thanks Yifan profusely and immediately tries on the dress, admiring how it looks on her. As they continue their conversation, Yifan asks Naelin about the training requirements for the Shadow Fist technique. Naelin explains that even for a talented individual, mastering the technique would typically require 2 to 3 months of dedicated practice. Yifan nods thoughtfully, mentally preparing himself for the commitment ahead. Ruoro, still beaming with happiness, asks Yifan when he plans to start practicing the new martial art technique. Yifan tells her he'll begin soon, once he's familiarized himself with the basics. Ruoro offers her assistance and pledges to support him in any way she can. With the dress admired and spirits high, Yifan and Ruoro enjoy a moment of camaraderie and shared enthusiasm, while Naelin watches fondly, appreciating their bond. But their moment is interrupted by a man's frantic arrival. He shouts that Ruoro's uncle is in critical condition. The doctor steps forward to explain the severity of the situation, casting a pall of sadness over everyone present. The man on the bed looks visibly distressed. Naelin and the old man share in the sorrow, and Ruoro and the others are deeply affected as well. The old man somberly explains that without the intervention of a legendary individual possessing great power or the discovery of a miraculous medicine, there is little hope for survival. Amidst the despair, the old man ponders aloud where in their world they might find someone with the knowledge of miraculous herbs. At that moment, the protagonist, standing quietly in the background, speaks up confidently, stating that he knows where to locate such herbs. Meanwhile, back on Earth, in a small herb store nearing closing time, 2 clerks are wrapping up their day's work when the protagonist enters abruptly. The startled clerk takes in the protagonist's unusual appearance, clearly caught off guard. In the other world, time passes slowly as the group waits anxiously. Ruoro grows increasingly concerned about Yifan's prolonged absence. Late into the night, Yifan returns with the herbs in hand. Everyone in the room is stunned. The old man, visibly moved, examines the herbs closely. He identifies them as the legendary celestial healing herbs, renowned for their miraculous healing properties. These herbs are extremely rare and powerful, capable of curing even the gravest of illnesses. Ruoro and Naelin are amazed at Yifan's resourcefulness and ability to find such extraordinary herbs. The old man asks Yifan where he obtained them, to which Yifan casually replies that he fetched them from his world. This revelation baffles everyone present, as they try to comprehend the concept of traveling between worlds and acquiring such potent medicines. Without wasting any time, the old man begins preparing the herbs into a medicinal concoction. Roruo, noticing Ifan's injured hand, questions him about it with concern. Embarrassed, Ifan recalls how he injured his hand back on Earth, hastily trying to close a door during a moment of confusion. He assures Roruo it's nothing serious, downplaying the incident with a sheepish grin. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Roruo scolds her uncle for not resting as instructed, only to be reassured that his legs have healed miraculously thanks to Ifan's intervention. Curious about Ifan's whereabouts, Roruo reveals that he went hunting for additional nutrients needed for the injured. She adds that he insisted on going alone, which worries her slightly. Meanwhile, deep in the wilderness, Ifan finds himself locked in combat with a giant snake. Undeterred by the serpent's constricting coils, he employs his newfound martial arts prowess. With a swift strike from the Shadow Fist technique, the snake retaliates, but Ifan remains unfazed, anticipating its every move. As the battle reaches its climax, Ifan manipulates the snake's movements, leading it to exhaust itself. With a final explosive strike, the snake is vanquished, and Ifan retrieves its heart, a valuable resource in this mystical world. Ifan felt the tension in the air as masked figures surrounded him, their intentions unclear. He calmly assessed the situation, his senses heightened from his recent training and battles. "I don't need to know who sent you," Ifan said coolly, eyeing each masked assailant cautiously. "But if you've come to challenge me, be prepared." The leader of the group, a burly man with a scar across his cheek, stepped forward. "You're quite perceptive," he grunted, "but it doesn't change anything. We're here for you." Posed, his stance unwavering as he pressed down with deliberate pressure on the man beneath his foot. "You have a choice," Ifan stated firmly, his voice cutting through the tension. "Give me the information willingly, and I'll spare your life and offer double the payment for your client's contract. Refuse, and I will end this here and now." The masked man grimaced, feeling the weight and determination in Ifan's words. I can't," the masked man muttered. The guy from the assassin sect remained resolute, stating that their professionals wouldn't be swayed by bribery. However, when the protagonist showed something shiny and asked if they were absolutely sure about their decision, the assassins reconsidered. They acknowledged that if the price offered became irresistible, they might consider it. Ultimately, they kneeled and assured the protagonist that no other assassin in Luoyun City would dare to take a contract against him. As for revealing the client's identity, they insisted that Yifan would have to wait until their mission was completed to find out. Yifan inwardly resolved that regardless of the client's identity, if they pursued him, they would face dire consequences. With these concerns weighing on his mind, Yifan decided he needed to acquire more martial arts techniques. Advancing to the blood transfusion realm seemed essential for him to navigate Luoyun City without fear. The following day, Lan and Yunka strolled through the city, where Lan vented her frustration about Nalan stirring up trouble among the... She was bad-mouthing Nalan, claiming he turned the peasants against her. Yunka intervened, urging her not to harbor resentment towards Nalan. He then presented her with the last golden hairpin from the pavilion, explaining someone had patiently awaited its acquisition. Ignoring his gesture, Lan declared her intention to splurge that day. Back in the pavilion hall, the protagonist approached Nalan for more martial arts techniques, surprising her since he had recently purchased a fist technique. Nalan questioned his sudden interest, but the protagonist brushed off concerns, jesting about his abundant wealth. Hearing this, Nalan mentioned she had items to sell, noting coincidentally that new high-level techniques had been acquired for auction. She revealed a top-tier yellow-rank technique, floating flower steps, a physical martial art. Suddenly, Lan burst in, startled to find the protagonist present. In a fit of anger, she threw a shoe at Yunka, disparaging him as useless. Lan confronted him about his unkept promise to eliminate the protagonist, questioning how he was still alive and walking freely in the pavilion. Yunka, bewildered by the failure of the professional assassins he hired to eliminate the protagonist, expressed disbelief. Meanwhile, the protagonist turned to Nalan and requested to be informed of any high-level techniques she acquires, vowing to purchase them all before they reach auction. Interrupting the conversation, Lan derided the protagonist's bold talk, mocking his humble origins. She declared her intent to outbid him for anything he shows interest in, offering triple the amount without hesitation. Nalan apologized but upheld the rule: the highest bidder prevails. Shocked at the notion of the protagonist outbidding her, Lan questioned Naelin's seriousness and proclaimed that if he could indeed afford it, she would publicly kneel before him. The protagonist, unfazed, questioned her sincerity. With confidence, Lan asserted her unwavering resolve, citing witnesses to her vow. She laughed triumphantly, predicting the protagonist would soon grovel at her feet. Yet, to everyone's astonishment, the protagonist produced a black card and handed it to Naelin. The onlookers gasped, recognizing it as the prestigious Imperial Cloud Order of the Pavilion. The Imperial Cloud Order, a rare token reserved for distinguished buyers of the pavilion, conferred unparalleled status upon its holder. Its possession granted direct access to coveted treasures from other merchant houses without the need for auctions, a privilege so exclusive that few possessed it. As murmurs of astonishment rippled through the crowd, speculation swirled about the protagonist's background and the unprecedented respect he commanded from the pavilion. However, the truth behind the protagonist's acquisition of the card was far more straightforward. Days earlier, after completing treatment for Yan at the pavilion, Naelin had implored him to sell her some herbs. Reminding her of an outstanding debt, the protagonist exchanged the coveted black card for the herbs. Lan, incredulous at the revelation, couldn't fathom how the protagonist came to possess such a prestigious item, comparable to that held by her own father, the city lord. Seeing Lan's disbelief, the protagonist approached her calmly. He asserted confidently that regardless of her offers, whether triple, 30-fold, 300-fold, or even 3,000-fold, he could surpass them. Leaning in closer, he challenged her to exceed his bid, or else she could begin crawling. Meanwhile, Yunka frantically searched for Lan, inquiring among the crowd until a passerby pointed him in the right direction. He discovered Lan in a humiliating situation, crawling on the ground while bystanders jeered. Yunka arrived just in time to witness his sister's degradation. Lan seethed with humiliation, feeling it was the worst she had ever experienced. The protagonist calmly countered her, asserting that if she thought he could be intimidated, she was mistaken. With measured resolve, he knelt briefly, explaining he disliked trouble but wasn't afraid of it either. Taking her hairpin, he warned that further offense would lead to consequences like this. As he turned to leave, remarking on the entertainment of the spectacle, Yunka arrived and hurried to his sister's side. She abruptly changed her stance, declaring she no longer wanted to kill Yifan but instead sought to make his life a living hell. Yunka, catching on, confirmed Yifan was Bai Yifan, and Lan affirmed it emphatically. She erupted, accusing Yifan of humiliating her and threatening Yunka that their marriage would be off unless he helped her. Yunka, incensed, revealed that Yifan was the elusive figure who had stolen his mountain-moving and celestial ascension techniques a month earlier. Lan struggled to comprehend, prompting Yunka to explain that he had planned to acquire the Celestial Ascension Order at auction to help her gain entry to the sacred realm for cultivation. However, Yifan had intercepted it during the process. Yunka had dispatched men to pursue Yifan, but he had evaded them with his skill and stealthy movement. Since then, they had heard nothing of his whereabouts. Lan grew anxious, realizing the depth of mystery surrounding Yifan's background. Back on Earth, in a small district, Yifan lounged on his bed, reflecting on the floating flower steps he had recently acquired. The technique, originally complex with 108 variations, had been simplified using principles from Earth, allowing him to master all variations in a single night. Combining the agility of the floating flower step with the strength of the Shadow Fist, Yifan felt confident he could easily confront someone at the peak stage of blood transfusion. He decided to go out and purchase cultivation supplies. As he opened the door, he was greeted by Miss Yao. Yifan apologized, explaining he had been resting and hadn't heard her knock. However, she was furious, reminding him it was payday and he hadn't paid the full rent as promised by the end of the month. Yifan handed over part of the amount owed, promising to pay the remaining 200 yuan next month. Yao seized his collar, demanding an explanation. Despite earning some money from delivering food, Yifan admitted he only made around 300 yuan a month. She scolded him for being healthy yet unable to pay rent. Yifan smiled wryly, explaining he spent most of his time cultivating in another world and only returned at night to earn what little he could. Yao returned his money, insisting he couldn't continue living like this. She handed the money back to him for now, but warned sternly that he must pay in full next month. Yifan thanked Miss Yao for her understanding and left to make deliveries on his motorcycle. He felt despondent, lamenting how in the other world he could live without financial worries, yet back on Earth, he returned to his dismal reality. Thoughts of risking his life for money through life insurance briefly crossed his mind, but he quickly dismissed it as potentially criminal. Suddenly, His phone rang. It was his father. Concerned, Yifan answered, and his father delivered distressing news. His mother had been in an accident caused by a drunk driver. The driver was apprehended, but the family lacked insurance. Yifan's father, visibly distraught, explained he had already borrowed from the bank and sought help from friends and relatives, but the upcoming treatment cost 300,000 yuan, with uncertain prospects for her recovery. In tears, Yifan's father blamed himself for failing the family. Yifan comforted him, insisting they were family and he would find a way to cover the remaining treatment costs. After reassuring his father, Yifan left the hospital room, already on his way out. His father called after him, but Yifan continued without stopping. As he walked down the street, Yifan contemplated the unfairness of life, recalling the saying that a hemp rope always breaks at its weakest point, and how misfortune seemed to target the poor and downtrodden. Suddenly, he heard screams. A group of men were attempting to abduct a girl. Without hesitation, Yifan sprang into action, leaping in to kick one of the assailants away. The girl caught only a blur as he intervened swiftly. The protagonist's swift kick shattered the man's leg mid-stride, sending him crashing to the ground. His companions hesitated, realizing their mistake. They had underestimated the protagonist. Dodging a retaliatory swing, the protagonist countered with a precise blow to the man's jaw. Despite feeling his cultivation wasn't fully adapted to Earth, his trained instincts and muscle memory guided every move flawlessly. "You're too slow," the protagonist remarked calmly to the stunned assailants. The last standing thug marveled at how the protagonist had incapacitated 7 of them in less than 3 minutes. Before he could react, the protagonist closed the distance in an instant, delivering a decisive strike that left the man unable to retaliate. Defeated and resigned, the remaining assailant knew fighting back was futile. With only the girl left standing, the protagonist turned to her and urged her to leave quickly. She implored him to escort her home, but he regretfully declined, citing his urgent delivery job which, if delayed, would cost him his pay. When she offered 1,000,000 yuan to ensure her safe return, the protagonist discarded his shirt and asked for her address. Soon, he arrived at the Tang family's villa. The girl assured him she would inform her family of her safety. Inside the villa, chaos erupted as a woman shouted angrily at security guards, threatening them with retribution. Rong, her eyes brimming with tears, called out from the back, catching her sister's attention. Just then, the protagonist arrived and greeted the woman. Rong immediately rushed to her sister, clinging tightly and vowing not to run away again. The protagonist felt relieved to see everything resolved. Soon after, the 3 of them sat down for tea and conversation. The woman expressed profound gratitude to the protagonist for saving her sister's life. She offered to host a banquet in his honor, but the protagonist politely declined, suggesting it was unnecessary. He mentioned Rong's promise of a reward, but quickly dismissed it, stating he didn't expect or need any compensation for doing what was right. However, the woman suddenly turned on Rong, incredulously asking if she had promised 1,000,000 yuan. The protagonist quickly interjected, trying to defuse the tension, saying it was not a big deal and shouldn't be taken seriously. Yet, the woman continued, berating Rong for possibly undermining her own sister's worth and dignity. Realizing the awkwardness of the situation, the protagonist reflected that money wasn't everything, especially when it came to matters of justice and morality. He decided to let the matter drop, reaffirming that his actions were driven by principle, not reward. The woman from the Tang family insisted on giving the protagonist 100,000,000 yuan as a token of appreciation. She confirmed that she belonged to the Tang family with a stock market value exceeding 50 billion yuan. Despite the generous offer, she remarked that the sum was still insufficient compared to what he had done for Rome. She assured him that if he ever needed anything in the future, he only had to ask. In response, the protagonist promptly mentioned something he wanted her to do for him. 3 days later, at a hospital in Heng City, Yifan and Tang engaged in conversation. She reassured him, stating that she had arranged everything necessary for his mother's treatment. The top 5 specialists in the field were already working on her case, and Tang was confident that his mother would recover soon. Continuing, Tang empathized with the protagonist, sharing that she too understood the pain of losing relatives, leaving only her younger sister. She emphasized her commitment to protecting Rong under any circumstance. Yifan expressed his gratitude, offering his assistance in return for any future favors she might need. Unexpectedly, Tang declared they didn't need to wait for the future, immediately requesting the protagonist to train her guards. To his surprise, a group of people appeared behind him, addressing him as their boss. Caught off guard, Yifan questioned whether he had time for this additional responsibility. Tang explained that her intuition about the attackers targeting Rong had been correct, underscoring the urgency of bolstering their security. They soon discovered that the attackers were hired by one of Tang's business rivals, intent on using Rong to undermine the Tang group. What surprised Tang was that the professional fighters the protagonist had subdued were still hospitalized, seemingly suffering from psychological trauma induced by their defeat. Impressed by the protagonist's combat prowess, Tang requested him to impart his skills to her guards for enhancement. The protagonist smiled, explaining that effective training required both practice and technique. Tang assured him she wouldn't take much of his time, half a month should suffice, and promised generous compensation. The protagonist quipped that Tang truly had a business mind, leaving him no reason to refuse. Yifan agreed to do his best but cautioned that success wasn't guaranteed. Tang accepted, organizing the training schedule to minimize interference with his personal life. The protagonist appreciated this, knowing it would afford him time with his family once he completed the task and received payment. For the next half-month, the protagonist dedicated himself to training the Tang family's guards. Meanwhile, at the hospital, his mother finally regained consciousness without complications, responding positively to the doctor's treatments. Returning home, the protagonist felt a wave of relief knowing both the training and his mother's recovery were successfully concluded. Entering the other world, Yifan was overwhelmed with shock. The village lay in ruins, consumed by fire and devastation. Frantically, he called out for Muti and Rururu, fearing the worst until Nalan appeared and informed him she had been waiting. Inside the pavilion warehouse, Yifan found the villagers recovering. His relief was short-lived as he noticed the injuries. Muti's right arm was missing, and others had suffered severe losses. Anxious, Yifan asked what had happened, realizing everyone had been maimed in some way. Muti reassured him, saying the loss of a hand was insignificant compared to their survival. Yifan then inquired about Rururu's whereabouts. With a heavy heart, Muti explained she was badly injured and currently being tended to by the old doctor. Meanwhile, Rururu, wrapped in bandages, stared at her reflection in despair, horrified by her burned appearance. Distraught, she cried out that she didn't want treatment, preferring death over living as a disfigured monster. Yifan rushed to her side, gently calming her until she fainted from exhaustion. Assuring her that everything would be better after rest, Yifan remained by Rururu's side, determined to provide comfort and support during this difficult time. Enraged and heartbroken by Rururu's condition, Yifan demanded to know who was responsible. Nalan explained that the perpetrators were from the Lin family, backed by the city lord's mansion. She lamented how such a tragedy had befallen Rururu, once a beautiful and innocent child, now grievously burned with little healthy skin left. Yifan's fury intensified at the mention of the Lin family and the city lord's involvement. He vowed to exact justice for Rururu and the village. Meanwhile, in the city lord's mansion, Yunka sought favor with the lord using spirit stones. Impressed, the lord entertained Yunka's flattery until Lan, filled with rage, confronted Yunka about his failure to harm Yifan as promised. The city lord, intrigued by Yifan's sudden appearance and rumored prowess, acknowledged his unpredictable strength. He recounted how Yifan had bested assassins, earning their loyalty. This revelation frustrated Lan further, reminded of her humiliation at the pavilion. Her father, amused by her plight, informed her of his plan to dispatch soldiers and cavalry to massacre the Mu family's village. Yunka, aware of the grim outcome, counted the missing bodies, confirming over 10 villagers were unaccounted for. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily on Yifan as he realized the extent of the violence and suffering inflicted upon his people. She didn't know exactly where these people were. They might have been rescued by someone. The lord told Yunka to put up wanted posters in the city to find the missing people in Yifan. Nalin finished recounting what had happened. She said she had some connections in Luyun City, and when she discovered this, she sent some men to help. Unfortunately, the Lin family was quicker, and by the time she arrived, it was too late. They started helping everyone who was still alive. Roruo was hiding inside a rice pot, but she also suffered severe burns due to the surrounding fire. The protagonist thanked Nalan and said he would never forget this favor. Nalan asked what the protagonist planned to do now. He replied that he would kill them all. She shouted at him that it was impossible, as there were cultivators at the blood transfusion realm in the Lords, and the Lord himself was at the 5th stage of the marrow cleansing realm. There were rumors that he had a high-level arcane weapon, but the protagonist didn't care. He said he didn't like killing people, but if they insisted on killing his friends and loved ones, he would show no mercy. The protagonist said that even if the Lord was at the 5th stage of the marrow cleansing realm, he would still be able to kill him. But before leaving, the protagonist asked for one more favor. Back on Earth, Yifan wasted no time. He visited a pharmacy and purchased a substantial amount of herbs and remedies for burns. The clerk, curious about the large purchase, asked Yifan about it, but he brushed off the question, preferring not to elaborate. His demeanor struck the clerk as somewhat unusual, but Yifan left without further explanation. Later, at the airport, Yifan joined his parents. His father expressed concern, asking if Yifan wanted to accompany them, even suggesting a worry-free trip to the Maldives with the remaining funds on the card. Yifan, however, politely declined, reassuring them not to worry about him. He insisted that they go and enjoy themselves, emphasizing that he was now an adult with his own challenges to face. As night fell, Yao's phone buzzed with notifications. Surprised by the late-night messages, she discovered they were from Yifan. He informed her that he had resolved the rent by paying it in advance directly into her account. He also assured her that the remaining money should cover future rent payments. Grateful for her support, Yifan expressed his appreciation for everything she had done for him. Yao felt relieved that Yifan had not misunderstood her intentions and was glad to hear he had found a stable job, allowing him to pay rent in advance. Back in the other world, Yifan had returned with a special herb and presented it to the old man, seeking assurance of its efficacy. The old man, recognizing the herb, assured Yifan that it was indeed potent and would not fail. He marveled at how Yifan had acquired such legendary medicinal herbs so quickly, herbs rumored to be as rare as gods and dragons, unseen and unattainable elsewhere in the world. Yifan explained that obtaining the herbs had been challenging due to the weight limit imposed by the ring, necessitating multiple trips. Nalan inquired if the medicine was prepared. Yifan handed it over, instructing her to administer it. Roruo, hopeful yet uncertain, asked if the medicine could restore her to her former self. Yifan reassured her that once she was healed, he would ensure she had beautiful dresses to wear. 15 minutes later, Roruo let out a scream and dropped the mirror. Yifan rushed to her side, alarmed by the noise. To his amazement, Roruo stood radiant before him. Her entire body restored to perfect health. She exclaimed with joy, noting that she even appeared to have grown 6 years older. Apologizing for breaking the mirror in her excitement, Roruo was overwhelmed with gratitude for Yifan's intervention and the miraculous recovery. Roruo had dropped the mirror in surprise, causing a brief scare. The old man, concerned, approached her quickly to ensure everything was all right. Yifan reassured him that Roruo was fine and remarked that she looked even more beautiful than before. He pondered aloud if the herb not only healed but also enhanced beauty and accelerated aging. Nalan marveled at Yifan's possession of so many worldly treasures in the form of rare herbs, prompting her to wonder about his origins. Yifan approached her gratefully, presenting the dragon tail flower as a token of appreciation. He then made another request, to access all the high-level martial arts techniques she possessed and to secure a suitable training location as soon as possible. Meanwhile, at a rural mountain property, Yifan was deeply engrossed in training. He consumed high-grade beast blood for sustenance, yet he found it insufficient. Determined to improve further, Yifan acknowledged that he was still a whole realm behind the marrow-cleansing realm. Despite this, he persisted, continuing his rigorous regimen. Yifan executed the flaming in-slash technique, cleaving through trees and stones effortlessly. Unsatisfied, he drank more beast blood and unleashed the technique again, striving for perfection. For him, however, it still wasn't adequate. His determination to catch up to the city lord's prowess drove him relentlessly onward. As the days passed in relentless training, Yifan found himself pushing harder than ever before. The old man inquired about how many martial arts techniques Nalan had imparted to him, remarking on Yifan's seemingly insatiable thirst for demon beast blood. Nalan, seasoned in the world of martial arts, advised against questioning such matters and suggested going with the flow instead. Yifan's training regimen became relentless. During the afternoon, he immersed himself in mastering the Storm Rain's word technique. As night fell, he switched to refining the Silver Moon Slash. Day after day, he persisted, his determination unyielding. Sweating profusely, he cut down mountains and trees with each stroke of his blade. Finally, after much toil and dedication, Yifan achieved a breakthrough, advancing to the blood transfusion realm. This marked a significant milestone in his quest for strength and justice, driven by a resolve forged through hardship and perseverance. That's it for today's video. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel for more updates. See you in the next video.